Arfield, 1-0 Burnley! Scott Arfield! He's been threatening that recently, and all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end. Oh, what a goal! What a goal from Robbie Brady! Burnley's first goal in the Premier League is something very, very special.
Wade Elliott has that change of pace and he's got away from Montgomery. It's the path of McCann and the follow-up finds the net. What a strike from Wade Elliott! A bolt from the Claret and Blue.
Oh goodness me! What a goal from Patterson! If that is to be the one that takes them to Wembley, you cannot argue with that. Pure quality.
Here goes Mike Conroy. Still time for a winner, maybe. John Francis! They came to York in their thousands. They're going home as champions.
I mean, if there's any justice in the world, Burnley would surely score from this corner. Swung right in there. Ball in there. Yeah! Michael Kelly! Oh, that's justice! That is justice at the Amex Stadium. Burnley are level and deserve to be.
Hello everyone and welcome along to the latest episode of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of a crunch clash against Preston North End. Not crunch in the sense of the season, not crunch in the sense of the league, because let's be honest, it's all wrapped up, not necessarily the league, but thank you to Sheffield United dropping points this weekend. It's a little bit more wrapped up than it already was. But we're going up, aren't we? I've said it before. You can clip this, you can save it, you can wait till the end of the season if we don't go up, but we're going up. But it is a bit of a crunch clash because it's a local derby, let's be honest. It's not the main derby. We all know which the main one is. But it's a big local derby, especially to Burnley fans of a certain generation, my generation. Now, I'm not saying young Burnley fans won't hate, well, not hate's a strong word. We hate Blackburn. We dislike Preston, I think is the word. I'm not saying Burnley fans who are younger than me or this generation of Burnley fan like in between the ages of 30 and 40 and older. Won't dislike Preston because it's a local rival. We all dislike them. And I do still look out for their results and hope that they get beat. But we didn't play Blackburn for the first time in my life until 1999, and I was already 11 by then. And then the time we played them after that, I think was in like the FA Cup in like 2005, and I think I was about 17 then. And then we didn't play them again after that until we went up under Coyle. So the only derby for me when I was growing up was Preston North End. And we had some good games, didn't we? Because obviously we were both doing well in Division 2 as it was back then. Both went up in the same year, and then both just stayed in Division 1 up until we got promoted in 2009. And they, of course, had some close calls of getting to the Premier League, but never quite made it, and have still never quite made it. And just looking at the league table earlier, they're not going to make it this season, are they? You never know. They could have a late run into the playoffs. I will just quickly get the league table up on my screen. Now, we have to scroll down quite a bit to find Preston. Oh, there they are. They're in 11th, which is lower than Blackburn. And I can't see Blackburn making the playoffs. So we'll see. There's always a team that makes a late run. Who knows? It might be Preston. But I'm going to start this with a stat that I know a lot of Burnley fans won't like. The last team to beat us at home in a championship match was, of course, Preston North End. And those of you that were watching the full-time show after the win against Norwich will already be aware of that stat, thanks to Liam Visser-Waddington, who was on the show. So I want to put that right. I do want to put, of course, we beat them at Deepdale that season as well with Joey Barton's deflected free kick. So that kind of put that right. But I'd love to smash him. Honestly, I would love to smash Preston. Some great memories down the years. We'll discuss that in a few moments with our guest. Now, I do want to, I'll bring the guest in about 30 seconds. I do just want to say, obviously, normally on the pre-game show, I like to bring in a fan of the opposition club. Now, unfortunately, Preston are incredibly tin pot, and I couldn't find a Preston fan to come on the show. I've sent emails. Who sends emails these days? It's normally just Twitter DMs. I'll send a few Twitter DMs, or I'm in a big WhatsApp group with loads of Championship fans. There's not one Preston fan in this WhatsApp group. So I've sent a few Twitter DMs, all got ignored. And I sent an email. Admittedly, the email was only last night, so maybe the lad hasn't had a chance to see it. But these Twitter DMs were, with it over the space of the last 3-4 days, and they got ignored. It was exactly the same problem earlier in the season at Deepdale. So I just don't think Preston have any fans. I genuinely just don't think they have any fans, especially content creator fans. So I'm going to bring somebody in who you will recognise, especially if you're a watcher of the full-time show. It is, of course, Sam. He likes a chat. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm not bad, mate. Are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So obviously, I was just saying then about the different generation of Burnley fan and how I believe this game would mean more to like a 35-year-old Burnley fan, for example, which is me, compared to like a 24-25-year-old Burnley fan, which is you. But of course, and I think you live in Leeds as well, don't you?
Yes.
So what is this derby like for you? Like, what does the derby against Preston mean to you?
Obviously we've got our main one, which is obviously playing Bastards, which is like, that's the main one. It's the one you look forward to. Fixtures come out, like obviously we haven't had to look for God knows how long, but Preston's another one where it's like I don't like them, but then again because like you say, because of my age and stuff, I don't really know why. Like I know my dad don't like him, so I don't like him. But no, to be fair, I have to give him credit as well this season, because what they've got is they've got a stadium that's a little bit lifeless. They've got fans that look like they don't want to be there. Obviously, granted, you haven't been able to get one on, so clearly it must be a very big issue for them. And but to say the team that they've got, the players that they've got and stuff like that, to be mid-table, they're not doing too bad by their standards, really.
Yeah, no, the game was a tough game at Deepdale. Admittedly, that was when we was a little bit hit and miss before we clicked. I genuinely believe if we were playing them at Deepdale tomorrow, or Saturday, for example, we'd win the match. My concern is now, and I'll just another stat which a lot of people won't like is the home table. Preston are in 23rd. There's only Wigan that have a worse home record in this league than Preston. They've only won 3 games at home all season and lost 8 games at home. However, away from home, and this is why they currently find themselves in mid-table, they've won 8 games all season. That's the same amount as Burnley have away from home. And they've only lost 3 times away from home. They are currently 3rd in the away table. Now, that worries me a little bit because, like I said earlier, they were the last team to beat us at home in the Championship. So I would like to beat Preston simply because of the things I've all just said. But does that sort of stat worry you, or do you just think we're just so good at the minute that it doesn't really matter what team comes at the minute? We will brush them aside.
We are very good. Like we're so good to watch at the moment. Like the football we play is for the league that we're in, and it's no disrespect to the Championship. Like the Championship is, I'm having so much fun being in the Championship. And some of the teams that come to us, you see the styles of play that they try to play, but they're not refined like they are in the Premier League, where it's like a tactical masterclass every game. I feel like we're the team that currently looks a little bit too good for the division that we're in. And like everybody else comes to us and, we go to them. And, I completely agree with you. Their form stat does, it is worrying on paper, but Norwich had just come off of the back of, spanking teams 3-0, 4-0, 2 away games. We went to their place and battered them. Which is, kind of, it's a little bit, it worries you a little bit, but like at the same time, like, we're not Norwich. Like we can make Norwich fold. Preston could come to us, and we could absolutely demolish them. And I think we will. We're such a good team to watch at the minute. We play some brilliant football, and I just think we've got too much for them, especially when it gets to latter stages of the game. They're a bit tired, and we get to bring on 4 or 5 cracking subs and then just start again, really. So, yeah, I'm not too worried, but it should be a good game.
Yeah, it's a fair point, isn't it? Because I went into the Middlesbrough game, they were resurgent under Carrick and still are. We brushed them aside. We went into the West Brom game. They were resurgent under Carlos Corberán, brushed them aside. And same again this weekend, like you said, with Norwich. Scored 8 goals in the last 2 games. 4 of them were against Preston, by the way, a team we've just beaten 3-0, scored 4 against Preston. And we brushed them aside as well. So it's a fair point, isn't it? I think at the minute we are, and again, at the risk of this being clipped up at the weekend, say, for example, if Preston do turn us over again, I just think we are just too good at the minute. Not necessarily for Preston, but just in general, I think we are just too good. And it is something that is in the back of my mind, this Preston away form, but it's not necessarily something that overly worries me because I just look at them examples that you made there and think, well, surely I've got enough. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing is, like, without sounding too cliche, like every game of football that he plays, he's almost 50-50. Like, one team can win, the other team can win. Obviously you can get a draw, but anybody can win a game of football. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, nobody would have thought Tottenham would have beaten City at weekend, and they did. Nobody would have thought, there's so many situations in football where you turn around and you say, you don't know who's going to win. This is just another one of them. Like when we went to Deepdale, I thought that was the game that we were going to click. And I thought that was possibly one of our worst performances of the entire season. Like we were so boring, so drab, playing backwards, creating about 3 chances in the game. And I went to the game and I remember thinking, like, I wish I didn't bother. Like it were really, really boring game to go see. This time round, we're a different team, and I agree with you though. Like we have such a good team and such a good setup that to the point where, like you say, West Brom they didn't lose in 9 games. We turn them over. Norwich get a new manager, score 8 goals in 2 games, fly through teams. We demolished them at weekend. Like, and it's not even from a cocky or arrogant perspective. I genuinely just think we are so good, and I feel like we've played our way into being able to have a loss, and people just go, "All right, dust themselves off, start again."
Yeah, that's what I was saying before the Norwich game. I was thinking, if we do lose it, there's a guy at work who's a Burnley fan, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know if we get beat this weekend, I'll start panicking." I'm like, "Why? If we get beat this weekend and Middlesbrough win, for example, which they did, the gap would have been 14 points. Oh no, only 14 points in February." So yeah, there is that side of it. We can afford to lose, and we can afford to lose 5 games really, and probably still be in the top 2. In fact, we definitely will be in the top 2. But this weekend, obviously, we can't be losing this week. If we're going to lose after Preston, lads.
Yeah.
Don't lose against Preston. But yeah, just looking at the league table, you said earlier, Ryan Lowe is doing a good job with Preston in 11th when you look at what they've got. But one of their players is, of course, Ched Evans. He's their leading goal scorer. Now, normally I'd get like, who's your danger men off the Preston fan, for example. As we've mentioned, no Preston fan fancied it. So maybe there's been too many anti-Preston tweets over the years from my account. They just think, nah, no one's answering him. But Ched Evans has got 7 goals and 1 assist. He's their leading goal scorer. Then you've got Emile Rees on 5. And then after that, Brad Potts on 3, then you've got an array of players on 2. So it does, even though Ched Evans is quite far and away their leading goal scorer, it does look like they're similar to us in that they share out a lot of their goals. But Ched Evans, obviously, he took time away from the game. Obviously, we'll gloss over that a bit for any risk of slander and libel. But since coming back, he's kind of like picked up where he left off in terms of like being a decent finisher and not prolific striker, but probably a decent finish is probably the best I can say. And somebody that if he gets half a chance, there's a good chance that he'll score. So is he somebody that worries you, or again, are you happy that we'll be comfortable against him?
It's more style of play with Preston that I think I'm a bit more worried about than individuals. It's not necessarily their ability through individual players, because if you put their entire starting 11 up against ours beats it tenfold. And again, that's no disrespect to them because of the position that they're in. They are playing out of the skin, but everybody on paper in our team is better than everybody on their team. And the thing with them that Ryan Lowe's got on playing so well is this kind of almost big teams that come to him. I mean, scroll through the results. I've just had a look now. The amount of teams in the top 6 that they beat and then drop points to teams below them is crazy. And the teams that they beat, it's because they want to play quick, expansive football, play the wings, and they just don't let you. They start at the game at Deepdale. They set up so defensively. It didn't even look like they wanted to win the game, but that style of play does work. And obviously at the start of the season, they were struggling to find the back of the net, couldn't score goals. And then, all of a sudden, I mean, they're spanking teams in some games, they're scraping some, but I mean, they spanked Blackburn 4-1, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. You're right.
This is a team that at the time was top 4. Like, you have to give Ryan Lowe a decent bit of credibility. He's done a fantastic job with a depleted squad, not very much quality. And I think fair play to him. And it'll be a tough game at the weekend, and they won't make it easy for us at all.
Yeah, are you expected to set up like that again then? Because like you say, they do like to come and basically do what Sean Dyche used to do when he go to the bigger clubs in the Prem, just stop the teams playing the game. However, having said that, Ipswich tried to do that last night, especially after it went to 1-1. A lot of time wasting, a lot of defensive play. Quite decent on the counter though, to be fair. But they didn't really look like, other than the counters, that they wanted to do anything other than sit back. There's been teams like Rotherham that have come to the turf and ended up losing despite playing that way. Reading. So are you expecting them to come and play like that despite other teams getting what they deserve and coming to the turf and playing that?
See, I'm almost gonna partially contradict myself a little bit. Like, that style of play does work. But it did work. Like, the team that we were trying to be, when we weren't gelled, we weren't a tight-knit unit, and all the cogs weren't turning together, that's when that style of play works. I've then since, in like that Rotherham game, I'm not even lying to you. I'm not even just saying it just because we ended up winning. There was points in that game where I was just like, 72nd minute, Benson will score. He scored. And then you start ticking the time down, and you're like, oh, there's still a very good chance of the teams who's going to go win the game. It's us. It's not them. It's us. And other games that we've played this season, like even last night, I was trying to find a stream for the game for about an hour, and I finally got one. And I was thinking, oh, do you know what? I'll finish my uni work. I'll leave it as soon as I've missed half a game, and I'll try and put it on for penalties. And I even turned around to myself afterwards. I was like, oh, you might as well put it on because we're probably going to score. That style of play doesn't worry me like it did at the start of the season. We saw Swansea come at us and try and play expansive football against us, turn them over 4-0. Teams that come at us, we turn over, and teams that sit back, we're finally managing to punish that sit behind the ball mentality, and that is why we're in the position that we are, because we can overcome whatever is thrown at us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point as well. You said that about earlier in the season. So many games where these kind of games would do us over. Preston, a perfect one. Stoke, there's other examples as well. Blackpool, that's kind of different, and so was Luton. But still, these sort of games where we would have easily won at this stage of the season. One player I've missed that will be returning to Turf Moor, unless he's injured, which wouldn't surprise me, is Robbie Brady. Are we worried about him? He will try and play some stuff, whether or not the system will allow it. But he used to go missing a lot in games, and I was very critical of Robbie Brady, but I'm kind of happy to see him doing well again. I just wish it was somewhere else apart from Preston. But we know he's got a good delivery on him when he wants. Probably 3 out of 4 deliveries will be dog shit, but then that fourth one might be decent. And if they get a free kick in a decent area, it's no twine. But we saw him score against Chelsea for us, so he has got the quality to unlock defenses with key passes and stuff. Are we worried about Robbie Brady?
I'm worried that if he scores or does something in the game, he won't be necessarily respectful about it because of how we were with him. I admit, when he was with us, when we signed him, I was absolutely gassed. I thought he was a great player. We bought him from Norwich, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we bought him from Norwich. He'd been at Hull. And all you'd seen is these brilliant set pieces and a player that liked to, he never was blessed with lots of speed, but he had the ability to juke his body about. that player that we signed didn't juke with the ball, didn't put in a cross very often. And he did this thing that me and my dad just say it still to this day. He were a flicky footy player. He kept flicking his foot around the ball and not even touching it. And I remember you used to get so frustrated with him because I used to think there is such a good player in there. You saw it in that Chelsea game. That goal that he scored was how his career at Burnley should have gone, and it should have took off from that moment. He was hindered by injuries quite a lot. And I just think after those injuries, he never came back the same player. I think he didn't like the fact that he wasn't. I struggle sometimes to talk about former players in our system because our system was so negative to players like that.
Yeah.
And I know we get slandered about it every single time we talk about the last regime, but sometimes that regime could kill a player's mentality, how they play, how they want to play. It could absolutely kill it. Like, we saw it with Jeff Hendrick. He's a central midfielder. He always has been. And Dyche thought he were a right midfielder, somebody who were going to take somebody on up wing. We were never going to do that. And I know it worked. And I'm so grateful for those moments. But I just feel like, certain players you can't be too hard on because of things that have happened in the past. And I think that system suffocated Robbie Brady's, ability. But I like seeing him do well. I'd so much rather see him not score.
Yeah, it'll be a shame if he bags against us. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's the kind of guy to be disrespectful. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if he, I don't know, shush the fans or whatever. Because
he got a lot of stick, I think. When he was with us, I think he got a lot of stick from Burnley fans online and at the games. People used to get frustrated with him cutting back and flicking about and not putting a ball into the box. So and the way he left as well wasn't exactly great, was it? I mean, end of contracts running down and just let him go for nothing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. He was the scapegoat, but I think sometimes it was justified. If I'm being honest with you, I wasn't his biggest fan.
100%.
I mentioned earlier in the show about Burnley fans of a certain generation will have some great memories against Preston. Obviously, you're speaking from a younger generation sort of point of view. But what are your sort of standout memories of the Burnley Preston derby?
It's normally quite high scoring, isn't it? Really, I mean,
it always used to be.
Historically,
even early 2000s, it were always really high scoring.
I mean, I think the main ones that I remember is we had the one where Iwelumo scored a hat trick. Was that 4-3?
Yeah, 4-3. Because I always remember after 4-3, the commentator said, because obviously I watched it on highlights afterwards. Yeah. The commentator said, "Well, 5-4 Preston, anyone?" Because Preston had just gone 3-2 in front or whatever. I've been in 3-2 in front for a little bit. Then we come back because they got a player sent off for taking too long to take a throw in. That was quite controversial. And then we just turn it around. But I remember the commentator going, "Well, 5-4 Preston, anyone?" But that one's probably the most entertaining one.
Yeah, and then did Rodriguez bag a hat trick against them as well at one point?
I don't remember Jay bagging a hat trick against them.
I feel like I may have completely made that up. My knowledge of playing Preston doesn't range very far because a lot of my biggest moments, like watching Burnley, have been mainly the championship seasons where we were doing pretty all right, and then obviously the Premier League era. So, obviously it's not a fixture that I've got too much knowledge of, to be fair. But all I know is that I like to beat them when we play them. It's nice to beat them when we play them, just so that we have bragging rights and they don't.
Yeah, there was a lot of 3-2s that I remember quite well. I remember because I went to uni in Preston, so I also had that extra sort of like spice to it. Not that I knew any Preston fans while I was there, because as we found out, they don't exist. But there were just that spice, because I sometimes go to lectures in a Burnley shirt, or I get a comment, and I had a Burnley flag on my window when I moved into from halls and into an actual house.
Yeah,
I had like a Burnley flag over my window in like 2009 after we went up, and my window got egged and like tomatoed and shit all the time. I was forever cleaning shit off it. And all my flatmates were like, "Just take the fucking flag down." I'm like, "No chance, it's staying up." And honestly, I kept it there all year. But I remember Sean St. Ledger obviously used to play for Preston, and they were there. Mm-hmm. I used to see him in like nightclubs and shit all the time. I remember once giving him a bit of stick because he scored. Well, it weren't an own goal, I don't think, but a similar sort of game where they were 2-1 up and we came back and won 3-2. And Andy Gray, I think he scored twice, or he might have scored a hat trick. I can't remember. But my standout memory is Andy Gray scoring, or Sean St. Ledger. I can't remember, but I remember that it was like a towering header from Andy Gray on top of Sean St. Ledger. So I can't remember if Sean St. Ledger scored an own goal or Andy Gray scored it. I can't remember off the top of my head. However, when they both fell to the ground, Andy Gray got up to run away to celebrate and then stopped, said something in Sean St. Ledger's ear, and then ran off. And I always remember thinking, I fucking love to know what he said to him. Yeah. I'd absolutely love to know what he said to him then. Not all great memories, though. I remember getting dicked 5-3 at Deepdale. I think Ricardo Fuller scored a hat-trick. But my favourite one, probably showing my age a bit here, I am 35 tomorrow. When you listen to this, I probably will be 35. So please wish me happy birthday on Twitter if you've got a spare time. 9th of February, that's my birthday. But my standout one is winning 3-2 at Deepdale when Arthur Nowhere scored twice. I think that was like 2001.
That's a blast from past, that, isn't it?
That is, because I remember him celebrating like that, because obviously Burnley fans used to do the da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. And I remember him celebrating like that, I think. But yeah, some great memories playing Preston. But like I said, not all good ones. I remember getting dicked 3-0 at the Turf once. I think that were in the late 90s, which were on Sky. And I lived, well, I'm going to say I live quite close to the Turf now. I actually moved to the other side of Burnley. I just completely forgot that I moved then. But I used to live really close to the Turf, near Bruncher Primary School. I don't know if you know it. Obviously, people listening to Burnley from Burnley will know it. But I used to live even closer on Prescott Street, which is literally you can see. Yeah, you can see it's where that butty shop is now, next to the Park View. You can actually see. You could see the Turf from my mum's bedroom window. And I remember getting beat 3-0 by Preston at all, which were on Sky, but I went on. And when I came off, it was still on my mum's TV. Because she'd been watching it at home, and it would just show it Preston fans celebrating. I remember seeing a Preston fan like that, go on, and I was just thinking, for God's sake, turn this off. Like 8-year-old in a mood or whatever it was. But it's probably the team. It's definitely the derby that I've experienced the most, and I'm looking forward to hopefully dicking them. We'll start wrapping it up then, but obviously we need to get predictions and things like that, and how we think the game will go out. I think you've hit the nail on the head when you look at their style of play. I think they're going to come and try and rough us up a little bit, not necessarily with some like bad tackles and stuff, but I think there will be some of them. I think it'll be a game where they try and take the sting out of it, they try and slow it down, and just sit back and hope to hit us with a counter or a set piece. But I'm hoping that we know that they're going to do that. I mean, of course, Vinny's brilliant manager, he'll know what they're going to do. I'm hoping we get an early goal. If we get an early goal, then they have to try and open up against us. I think, honestly, we could brush them aside 3-4-5. I think we'll do well to do that well, though. It's always a tough game against a team that sits back. So I'm expecting maybe not brushing them aside as well as we have done with teams recently, but maybe a 2-0, 2-1 if they get a goal from a set piece or something like that. But I'm still expecting to win. I'm going to say 2-0. What about you?
I'm going to say 2-0 as well. I do agree with that idea, though, that if we do score, I think we'll tear them apart. Like, I think if we get a goal early, they're not a team that like to play expansive football. They're not a team that wants to try and get, like, they're the team that wants to try and get a goal and then defend that goal. Like, I reckon the only reason they turn Blackburn over so much is because they're also shit. But, like, they're absolutely awful. Hang on, bloody hell, I've got something coming up on my screen here. And sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, we'll call it
that. No, I think, like you say, it depends on how the game goes. But I've got I think it's a pretty fair representation of how they're going to come up against us. Is they're 11th in league, they maybe shouldn't be there. They've done well to be there, definitely, with the squad that they've got, and they come into the team that is in the best form in the Championship, the best team, scored the most goals, spent the most on players, getting the best out of everything, has hands down the best manager in the league, and I think certain teams will rise to that occasion. Unfortunately, I can't see, well, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for them, I can't see Preston being that team. I just can't. And I hate to say it, because, like I say, I think Ryan Lowe's done a great job, and I think, they've got threat in different areas and different ways, But I think we can counter that with our pretty solid defence, our good goalkeeper, our high press, and the fact that our goalkeeper can play out front back. If they step up, we're in behind, and it's game over from that moment.
Yeah,
so.
well, fingers crossed. Obviously, Muric is back. I believe he is, although I've not seen anything confirmed yet. So don't take that as gospel if you listen to this before the Vincent Kompany press conference. But Bailey's done all right standing in. Obviously, Muric is still the number one for me, though. Obviously, I always let people give a shout out where they can find the socials and stuff. So if you want to have a chat with Sam, where do you find him?
The Clarets Roundup page. Get yourself over. We love a chat about Burnley, about football. Just get chatting. Just let me know, at me and everything.
Yeah, please do. And of course, subscribe to the Turfcast podcast channel if you haven't already. And you can find us on all the usual places. Just search Turfcast podcast. So if you're listening as well on the podcast and you want to watch on YouTube, feel free, or vice versa. But Sam, thank you for coming on. It's different to have you on a pre-game show, but I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it as well. Happy birthday for tomorrow, and also, pal. You know,
thank you, mate. I expect a tweet.
You're an old man now. You're an old man.
I was saying off air, weren't I? I'm probably due a midlife crisis, so I might go and buy a sports car or something.
No, don't worry. I'll put a nice little post on for you tomorrow.
Nice one, mate. I appreciate that. And thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. I'm sure you'll be about this weekend for the full-time show, but we'll discuss that on DMs and stuff as and when. But thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.